Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Johnson Shoyama Graduate School of Public Policy here at the university, I want to welcome you to tonight's debate. My name is Dale Eisler, and I'm going to be your moderator. Before I introduce our two debaters and outline the agreed-upon rules of engagement, allow me to provide some context for the discussion that's about to unfold. The subject we're dealing with, as I'm sure you're all well aware, is the unanimous proposal by the Regina City Council to construct a new wastewater treatment plant using a public-private partnership, or P3 model, to finance, design, build, and operate the facility. The P3 approach is being proposed rather than what might be termed a more traditional, fully public model, often referred to as design, bid, build. Instead of publicly funded, owned and operated, the P3 project would be privately financed and run. Ownership of the facility would remain in public hands, with the asset held by the City of Regina. A key reason cited by the Mayor and Council for the P3 model is $58.5 million in federal funding that is available for the project. The funding is part of $1.25 billion that was in this year's federal budget that was set aside for public-private partnerships in excess of $100 million. This particular wastewater plant is estimated to cost $224.3 million. As a result of a petition organized by a group under the banner of Water Watch, which opposes the P3 model, Council agreed to hold a public vote on September 25th, allowing Regina citizens to say whether or not to proceed with a public-private partnership. The ballot question is, quote, that the Council of the City of Regina publicly finance, operate, and maintain the new wastewater treatment plant for Regina through a traditional design, bid, build approach. While there is divided opinion on the best policy instrument to build the facility, there is at least general agreement a new sewage treatment plant is needed. So the question is not whether to build or not, it's what's the best way to achieve the greatest public good. And that's where the consensus breaks down and why we're here tonight. Hopefully we can probe this issue in a way that will present the facts and allow Regina citizens to make a fully informed decision when they cast their ballot for or against the question next week. To do that, our objective is to focus on facts, not rhetoric. We want to address the public policy choice and what is in the best long-term interests of the citizens of Regina. Certainly there are plenty of facts and studies we can use to examine the issue. The use of public-private partnerships as a policy tool is certainly not new. We have decades of experience with P3s in Canada. In fact, Canada is among the world leaders in the use of P3s. So this is not about breaking new policy ground. The question is whether it is the right model for this type of public project. Part of the struggle is to untangle public from private interest, to determine if public good and private benefit can intersect and work together for the broader interest of the community. Our debaters tonight are the key figures who have driven the public discussion to date. Speaking in favor of the ballot question, which in this case means opposed to the P3 proposal, is Jim Holmes of the group Water Watch. And Jim is to my far right, to your left, which I think is maybe most appropriate. I was going to make this observation at the end. We're going to ask the audience to withhold from applause and cheers tonight, and we'll just listen to the debate, just to kind of keep this thing on a balanced, even keel, okay? So, please. Anyway, so Jim was born and raised in Regina. He started as a mail clerk at the University of Regina Library, just a stone's throw from here, in 1973. That was even after I left. So that's how old I am, I guess. And became a staff representative for the Canadian Union of Public Employees in December 1979. Mr. Holmes retired in March 2004 as the Saskatchewan Regional Director of CUPE. He was appointed by Premier Brad Wall to a part-time position on the Labor Relations Board in 2011. And Jim has announced that he's going to run as a candidate for the Saskatchewan Party in the next election. No. That last part's just a joke. That's not true. Speaking against the question, or in other words, in favor of the P3 model, is Mayor Michael Fougere. Good, that's fair. He was elected as mayor in October 2012 after serving for 5 terms on city council. He holds a Bachelor of Arts with honors from St. Francis Xavier University and a Master's of Science degree from the London School of Economics. Michael has lived and worked in several provinces, Asia and Europe, and his career has focused on economic development. So, in the case before us tonight, when we talk about the ballot question at least, yes means no and no means yes. So are you confused yet? Hopefully by the end of the night, everything will be clear. Now, I realize that public policy is the application of politics, but our objective tonight is to keep the discussion rooted in facts, to depoliticize it as much as possible. The format for the debate has been agreed to in advance by the participants. Each will have a maximum of 10 minutes for opening remarks. The order of the opening remarks was determined by a coin toss. Following opening statements, each will have 5 minutes of rebuttal. Following rebuttal, we will move into questions. Mr. Holmes and Mr. Fougere each submitted 3 questions that were shared with both debaters earlier this week. The debaters will have a maximum of 3 minutes to respond to each of their 3 questions. We will then go to written questions from the audience. If necessary, in cases of duplication or overlap, questions will be grouped into themes. And we have people here that are collecting the questions from you. These are written questions only. We don't have floor mics. So if you have a question you've written out on the card, just raise your hand and somebody will come and get it. During the question period, I'll use the prerogative of the chair to ask questions or seek clarification, but my intention is to keep any of my interventions to a minimum. It's not about the moderator, it's about the debaters. We will conclude with final comments of 3 minutes each from the 2 debaters. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, I ask people to avoid outbursts of applause or comments. We're here to listen to our debaters. If you have a question, submit it. If not, then sit back and listen. Hopefully by the end of the evening, those of you who are still undecided will feel they have a better understanding of the issue and the public policy choice before the citizens of Regina. So, let the debate begin. Speaking first for up to 10 minutes is Jim Holmes.
Good evening, and thank you to the Johnson Shoyama Graduate School for this important debate. Almost all water and wastewater treatment plants in the world are publicly financed, operated, and maintained. 100 years ago, Regina started a public sewage collection system after an outbreak of typhoid fever. Water and wastewater was and is essential to life. Wastewater is 99% water. Think shower, flush, washing dishes, and laundry. We discharge our wastewater into the water source of hundreds of thousands of people downstream of us to the east. And we are downstream for 1.5 million people to the west who discharge their wastewater into our water source. We all share a responsibility to respect this essential resource. None of our major comparators, Saskatoon, Calgary, or Edmonton, have privatized their water or wastewater systems. Yorkton, with a population of 17,000, built a new water treatment plant in 2012, winning an Environmental Innovation Award. It was a traditional design, bid, build project with federal government funding, but it was not a P3. It came in on schedule and on budget. Democratically controlled, publicly financed water and wastewater treatment is a public sector success story. The city's privatization proposal, on the other hand, is bad public policy. And tonight I'm going to try and give you 10 reasons why I think it's bad policy. 1, a private corporation will control the plant. Now, the city claims it will control the plant, but the Deloitte, their consultants' report is clear on pages 15, 5, 15, and twice in the conclusions on page 23 of their report. The city must transfer operational control to the private operator in the P3 model. 2, the lack of independent evaluation. When I make a major purchase, I always listen to the salesperson. They have good information, but buyer beware. And Deloitte is selling us privatization. It's a substantial part of their business. They are sponsoring members of the Canadian Council for Public-Private Partnerships. This is from their website. The council is a proponent of evidence-based public policy in support of P3s. That's what they did. Deloitte built a case for P3 privatization. Deloitte has the same relationship to P3s that the bond rating agency did to toxic mortgage securities. They're selling what they're supposed to be evaluating. A secret 30-year deal. Deloitte's report was released in January, dated January this year, and it was missing all the crucial calculations and assumptions. The response to our access to information request was heavily redacted. All the key information was erased. The pages were blank. We need to know, in ballpark figures, the borrowing costs, how much higher the private interest rate will be, and what the return on equity, the profit of the private corporation will be. Now, no one has more experience with the P3 model than Britain. Both the Conservatives and the Labour Party have been promoting them since 1992. But the all-party British House of Commons Treasury Committee issued a study on P3s in 2011. This is what they said. The difference in finance costs means P3 projects are always more expensive to fund over the life of the project. This represents a significant cost to the taxpayers. Only the mayor claims the difference between public and private borrowing rates is insignificant. So if it's insignificant, why is it secret? The excuse for not releasing borrowing costs is this would undermine the bidding process. But the bidders know the city's borrowing rate, how much higher their rate is, and their desired rate of profit. Only the voters of Regina are being kept in the dark. 4, the public pays for private profit. Deloitte acknowledges that the traditional public tendering is cheaper until you figure in the PPP Canada grant. The P3 model uses our federal tax dollars to subsidize the creation of an unregulated private monopoly. This is a recipe for price gouging and for loss of democratic accountability. But our tax dollars do not get us a better plant. Our tax dollars get investors a better rate of return. Number 5, higher financing costs wipe out the federal grant. The private corporation does not bring any money to the table. That's clear in the Deloitte report. It just borrows the money in our name, and we're going to pay it back through our water bills. Private corporate borrowing is higher cost. How much higher is a secret. So Regina Water Watch commissioned Hugh McKenzie, an economist, to analyze the project. Using very cautious figures, he estimated $95.9 million of increased financing cost. The entire federal grant will be wiped out. And we will pay $37.4 million of higher water bills over 30 years. All of McKenzie's calculations are available at reginawaterwatch.ca. This is the only publicly available evaluation. Remember, the city still won't release its calculations. 6, dubious value for money. Any credible value for money evaluation must be open and transparent. Citizens must be able to validate the assumptions and check the calculations. None of this is possible with the Deloitte report. All of their calculations are secret. The Auditor General of Ontario criticized excessive risk transfer advantage, criticized the risk transfer advantage being assigned to P3s as being excessive. The British House of Commons Treasury Committee raises concerns that the value of money for appraisal system is biased to favor P3s. But the real risk in the P3 is that the corporation can always walk away. And we know from other P3 projects, the corporations do walk away. We can't walk away from our sewage. 7, the cost runs are built in. In 2012, the city said the plant would cost $153 million. Today, that estimate is $234 million. That includes $10 million in fees to lawyers, brokers, and consultants the city hasn't told us about yet, although Councillor Young admitted it. Remember how the airlines used to advertise those super low fares, right? And then when you went and signed up for them, they hit you with all those added fees and costs? That's illegal now, unless you're the city of Regina. There's no wonder P3 proponents say they often come in on budget. This project already has a 50% cost overrun before it's even started. 8, public tendering can also include fixed price. The mayor would have you believe that a P3 model is the only model that includes fixed price. The contract will pay for any cost overruns or late completion. But publicly financed projects can include a fixed price contract. Just recently, the city of Saskatoon built the Circle Drive South Bridge using traditional public tendering and with a fixed price contract. 9, water back into public hands. The city claims P3s are the wave of the future, but the real trend is municipalities taking back water services from the privatizers. Just 2 weeks ago, Berlin took back its water system after 14 years of privatization. Paris, Indianapolis, Brussels, Atlanta, Hamilton, Ontario, all took their water systems back from the privatizers. Examples like it all over the world. But there are sad examples of cities being bamboozled into privatization. So this was my last point. Number 10, we can't trust the city's numbers. Citizens want accurate numbers to make critical decisions. Now, city says abandoning the P3 model will cost the average citizen another $276 a year. This is the city council that raised water and sewer rates by 70% in 7 years, or $600 for the average homeowner. We are told it was mainly to pay for the new wastewater treatment plant. The city says this rate of increase will continue indefinitely under privatization, even after the plant is built. The mayor admits the $276 is an arbitrary number, never approved by city council. It suggests it was invented by a spin doctor. Every councillor and every city official has a different explanation of how they got to $276. I suggest to you that $276 is simply sewage sludge. And the city has smeared it on billboards all over town using your tax dollars. And now they're plopping it in your mailbox. My 2 granddaughters just started school this fall. The oldest one started grade 5. The youngest one started full days in grade 1. They will be 40 and 37 years old when this expensive, secret, private deal comes to an end. 5th, I'd invite you to vote yes for public water. Vote yes to keep water public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes, and right on time. I think you're about 9 minutes and 50 seconds, so that's good. So next up is Mayor Fougere. Mayor, over to you. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Dale. Jim. Good evening, everybody, and I want to thank the Johnson Shoyama Graduate School for the opportunity to talk about a very important public policy issue. And as you know, that we are deciding next Wednesday, not if, but how we will fund and operate our sewage treatment plant. Now, before I get into the details of why I believe the P3 is the best view and that council voted unanimously for that, I want to talk of some context here. We are a growing city. Our population is growing. We have immigrants from around the world coming here. You can look in the audience tonight and see the different colors here. We have the lowest unemployment rate in Canada. We have companies moving here, creating jobs. Our kids, our grandkids are living here now and staying here. We are the envy of Canada and the world in many ways. One of the roles of City Council is to plan for that growth, to make sure that we do what's right. Infrastructure renewal. We spent $18 million this year on fixing our roads, the most ever. We're annexing land to accommodate growth. We have a new agreement with the Alderman of Sherwood about how we plan for regional economic growth. All very, very important issues. So council, when it looks to add to and fix its infrastructure, we look for partners. We look for ways that we can partner with senior government, how we can stretch your tax dollars. Only 8 cents of every dollar you spend in taxes goes to your municipalities to cover fire, police, snow removal, garbage collection. All these issues are important. So we don't have a lot of cash, and it doesn't grow with the economy as PST does or GST. So we want to stretch those dollars. So we came to realize that the sewage treatment plant, fundamental to the growth of our city, the sustainability of our community, we have to fund this. And we didn't walk in and say one day we want to do a P3. We looked at 12 models. And we spent several years looking at this through council, my last term on council and this term on council, evaluating 12 different ways to fund this. Design, bid, build, public-private partnerships, and variations in between. So we sort of backed into why a P3 would be the best. And I can tell you we've got 11 people on council who have different backgrounds, different experiences, different life experiences, but we came to one conclusion. A public-private partnership will answer the question for us, and I'll tell you why. Most importantly, and very significantly, I want to make it clear here, we are not privatizing our sewage treatment plant. We own and control that. The same as when you have a house and someone comes in to refurbish your roof, change your roof, fix your basement, no one questions whether you own the roof or not. Someone changes your furnace, the same thing. We own the facility. You have a mortgage on your house, nobody questions what's on the title of the property. It's your house. Same thing. What we're doing here is we're finding a way to access money, $58.5 million, 1/4 of the cost of the facility, from the federal government. Very, very important aspect when tax dollars are very tight. Very important to do that. We had other principles we wanted to protect here. Again, we're not selling this off, it's not privatizing, we own it. We control it. And we are not talking about drinking water. We're not talking about water. We're talking about a sewage plant. And the water system in this city does not mix with the sewage system in this city, and heaven forbid if that ever was the case. So, on a design bid build, and on P3, here's the features. We have a fixed price contract on a public-private partnership. Not so on a design bid build. This is a performance-based contract that the contractor will be responsible for all cost overruns and delays. It's very simple. It's in the contract. The companies that are going to be building this are large corporations that have done this before. They have economies of scale. They understand how to do this. City Council, the City of Regina does not build these facilities. We don't have the expertise. So it just stands to reason this would be the case. Any cost overruns. Fully 70% of design bid build in the public sector for large projects are over budget, 70%. 83% of public-private partnerships are on time and on budget. Which would you take as a councillor? What would you say would be the best for the citizens of Regina? Then we look at the 30-year project of maintaining and operating. Of course, the company that has this will be looking at the operation of it, but we control it through rates, we control it through the contract that will be public. If we go down this road, that contract will be tabled in City Council for all to see. So there's no 30 hidden deer here whatsoever. So we have that. We also have a performance contract that they must continue to clean the water as per what the province says. And these are higher standards. We must build this by December 31st, 2016 to meet those new standards. The contractor must make sure that it's maintained and operated in a way that meets those codes, but also agreed upon predetermined codes, levels of maintenance. So at the end of the 30 years, we will have a fully maintained and operational wastewater facility that we can either continue to operate ourselves, or we can have the company continue, or another company do it 30 years from now. Very comfortable with that. We will save $20 million on that. Now, the Deloitte report, we are comfortable as council. We reviewed this for a number of years. We see this and we know it's right. They have done this all over the world. And not just wastewater, they are financial experts as well. And 11 of us voted unanimously because we saw the obvious benefits to taxpayers. Stretching our tax dollars. Providing an opportunity to have federal infrastructure money put in here, because otherwise you won't get it. There's no other source of money from the federal government to fund this. To me, the case is clear, absolutely clear. We stretch our tax dollars. We own and control. It's about sewage, not wastewater. And we have the hammer on the contract. I must tell you that some of the comments about control and secret 30-year deal is not the case. I'll have a rebuttal on Mr. Holmes' comments in a few moments. The profits that you talk about are made in the design bid build on his model. It's the private sector that will build it there as well. So ask how much there will be. There is not a fixed price contract as there is with the public-private partnerships. We're asking you to consider this information. You've had literature given to you on the outside. We're asking you to stretch your tax dollars, gain $58.5 million from the federal government. Vote no to the motion that's before you next week at Referendum Day. Please vote no, and I can tell you that the $58.5 million can be used for other infrastructure that we need in the city very badly. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you, Mayor. So now we're going to move into the rebuttal portion of the debate. Each of the debaters gets 5 minutes to rebut the opening comments by the other debaters. So, Jim, I'll go to you first, please.